So I think, from our standpoint, the findings highlight pricing levels, demonstrate that 001 is a multi-billion-dollar peak sale potential in the US. And as I said, these payers agree with that.
Hello, you're watching Proactive. I'm joined by Poolbeg Pharma CEO Jeremy Skillington, as well as Principal Scientist Liam Tremble. Jeremy, Liam, very good to speak with you. I'll start with you, Liam. You announced some significant updates for the POLB 001 topical trial. Please, can you explain to investors why clinical trial authorization from the MHRA is such a significant milestone?
Yeah, thanks, Stephen. I'm really delighted today to be able to announce that we have these regulatory approvals in place. So this basically means that the trial is able to proceed in the United Kingdom. So for these approvals, we submit all of our preclinical, clinical manufacturing data, and they review them and make sure that the drug is safe to give to humans and that the protocol is designed properly. So along with the MHRA approval, this normally comes with the Health Research Authority, the HRA approval, and also RSAC approvals, which is the radiation approval. So all of those are now in place, meaning we now have all regulatory approvals to proceed with the study. This is the last regulatory hurdle before we progress to opening up the sites and getting patients screened and into the study.
You say you're on track to deliver interim data this summer. Can you tell us more about the next steps and how the expansion to additional sites will impact the trial?
Yeah, so we're also delighted to announce that we do have 2 more sites that have come on board for the trial, bringing us up to 6. So the additional sites, the NHS Lothian up in Edinburgh, and also the Royal Stoke University Hospital. So these are 2 leading researchers. It's really important that these sites have experience with the bispecific antibody and with the management of cytokine release syndrome, so that we collect high quality data and that our drug is used appropriately. So we do have those site initiation visits scheduled. All going well, we're hoping to have patients screened very soon and recruited into the study. So this is obviously an acute condition, cytokine release syndrome, that we're studying. Bispecific antibodies are essentially given in 3 microdoses at the start, and these small microdoses are to mitigate the effects of cytokine release syndrome. So all of this happens over the first week or 2 of these bispecific antibodies. So while the bispecific is given for months or years, the risk of CRS only actually happens for a couple of weeks. So that's the period that we're watching in these patients, the first couple of weeks, and to monitor if cytokine release syndrome happens or not. So we're really excited this data is going to accumulate really quickly, and it leaves us on track to deliver data later this summer.
Jeremy, you also shared insights from some independent US payer research. Can you share the rationale for conducting this research?
Yeah, of course. We conduct the research to help support the value proposition for potential partners, as we continue our discussions with them. And, this is a relatively new therapeutic area, so it's kind of important to kind of get that feedback from the US payers. So these are real world analysis. These were, 3 pairs that, we conducted interviews with, or independently conducted interviews with. They're commercial insurance providers, Medicare, Medicaid populations, so you're really getting to the heart of the matter here. We also wanted to better understand the economic burden of CRS and, the potential value of, what we see as a preventive solution. I mean, this is a relatively new area of medicine, of treatment, so we do wanted to make sure that, that confirming there's an unmet need, there's a significant market, and we were happy to see that was the case.
What were the key findings from the research, and what do they mean for POLB 001?
Yeah, I mean, it's like this is the crux of it. We confirmed that there's a strong and clearly defined value proposition across these payers, and they cover over like 75 million lives, in the US. So it was a good kind of database or data set to be looked for. We did note that CRS, as we know, occurs in a majority of CAR T cell patients and bispecific antibody treatments. So there's no diagnostic. You can't filter out who's going to get it or not. So basically, you don't understand who's going to get it or the severity that they get. So it was key to kind of dig into that a little bit. Dosing of bispecifics, must be withheld, when CRS develops, and this often delays the patients getting the important drugs that they need, and it all drags on. They're kind of stay in hospital as well. So there's a lot of factors that kind of weigh in. So prevention kind of will reduce all of these costs. Especially patients who get that high grade CRS, they must be discontinued treatment, completely. So again, there's a lot of kind of risks associated with that. So this research was really important, confirming that there is a significant cost burden, and the insurers recognize that. And of course, they did their analysis and understanding what they were willing to pay, to prevent these kind of issues, when it comes to CRS and these patients developing CRS. So compelling value proposition, without question. So I think, from our standpoint, the findings highlight pricing levels, demonstrate that 001 is a multi-billion-dollar peak sale potential in the US. And as I said, these payers agree with that. So there's a significant market opportunity here. And I'd say, this is something that will be compelling for potential partners because, following this, we expect positive data from our topical trial. Partnership will follow. And I think this is, beyond the data from the clinical trial, this is a compelling market opportunity for these potential partners as well. So, fantastic opportunity. It was great to get that, as I say, kind of independent insight into preventing CRS and the benefits it'll have to these payers and patients.
Well, congratulations on this latest milestone. I hope you'll keep us updated with your progress on that.
Thank you too.
That's Jeremy Skillington, the CEO of Poolbeg Pharma, and Principal Scientist Liam Tremble.